Alright everybody, so today I've got a lesson that I just made up for everybody, for beginners that are having trouble understanding things, that want an easy way to get down into um, soloing over chords. You can use this for ideas about soloing over chords, and also if you just want to play a solo that emphasizes certain chords, making like a solo that um, works like it's trying to play a song, meaning staying over certain chords at certain parts of the solo. This lesson will help with that. So here we go. Um, First of all, our understanding is this. We've got basically what we're talking about here. It sounds to the beginners like stuff you don't want to know, because this is probably, you think that this isn't music, but all music that's generally speaking, most of the tunes you hear stay in a key. And there are great songs that take advanced theory, to really sound good. You advance theory and you borrow keys, chords from other keys. That would be a little bit beyond the scope of this lesson, but otherwise we have the general majority of songs are going to follow into do re mi fa sol la ti do. And so for this lesson, do re mi, and we should know do re mi. Each one, this is if you count, there's 12 squares representing 12 notes, and do to re is a whole step, means there's a note in between there, and then like mi to fa is a half step. Something you should know. Anyways, do re mi fa sol la ti do is generally spoken as root 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. The root, the do, the chord off the 1, the chord off the 2 note, we give it a 2. The chord off the 3, the mi, we give the 3. The fa, the 4. So is 5. La is the 6th note. Ti is the 7th note, and the 8th note is the root, back to root. Again, now these, the chords that are built off this can confuse new people, so that's what we're going over real quick right here. And if you are familiar with this already, you can skip ahead in the video. Anyways, the root is a major chord, the 2 is a minor chord, 3 is a minor chord, 4 is major, 5 is major, 6 is minor, 7 is a diminished chord. At the very basic, simplest, you don't have to understand why, you just have to memorize that. And this is going to get this will be very helpful if you just simply memorize 1 equals major, 2 equals minor, 3 equals minor, 4 equals major. If you play around with this long enough, it'll eventually sink in. That's what happened with me, because I never had a reason to actually memorize that, because I couldn't understand how it would apply. And at this point in your learning, you might not really understand the impact this might have on your playing. So it might be hard to assign all these, but if you can think that it's easy, it's really just 7 things, and it's really 6 things. You can always know that your 7th is this weird diminished chord that you're really only going to deal with when you get into jazz. So you can almost think, at the very least, if you want to make this simple, memorize this code right here. Major, minor, minor, major, major, minor. Okay, now why does that work, and how does that work? It works like this. If you start with your first note and give it a name, the root, then you list and you want to name the intervals of every note up to 12. It goes, I didn't go up to 12 here because we don't need to today. We go flat 2, or the flat, just call it flat 2, then the 2, and the flat 3rd, then the 3rd, and a 4th, and a flat 5th, and a 5th. If you wonder why is there only 1 4, you get a lot of questions when you look at this, because that's music theory. Don't worry about that stuff today. Just bypass it, ignore it. Just focus on what I'm trying to tell you today. Up here, I try to give you a real handy, easy note here. Flat 3rd is always going to make a sad chord. A major 3rd is always going to make a happy chord. This is the actual note of the 3 notes that make up a basic tertiary, or 3 note chord. The 1, a 3, and a 5 is the implicator that's going to make it happy or sad, is this one of these notes right here. You're going to pick one of these to make it a sad chord, a minor chord, or a happy chord. That's the function of this 3rd right here. It's not its only function, but that's where these chords, major and minor, are coming from, in case you wondered. Now, another thing about making a chord, what you do is you when you make a chord, you pick a note for your root, and then you skip a note, choose its next note, that's your third, skip a note, and that's your fifth. So in other words, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or if we started here, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So for example, if I start from this note here, let's count the spaces. I'm going to choose this as my R, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 notes are not used, and then I'm going to find my note right here. I'm going to use the notes that are in the scale. So my only choices are do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, or ti. I'm not going to use the empty space notes. Those are like the black keys on the piano. So in our example here, I'm going to go choose this note, skip a note, choose this note, skip a note, and choose that note. Let's look at the pattern that made. When we choose this note to this note, we've got 1, 2, 3 empty squares. Go back to this chart here that you'll write down, and look at this. It's got 3 empty squares, meaning the note you've chosen is here, the major third. Okay? So if I start from the 2 note, notice that because of this weird half step right here, it changes things up. If I go from this note, skip this note, and choose this note, I've only got 2 notes in between there. So see what happens when we've only got 2 notes in between. We've got a root, skip our 2s, and we got to the minor third. So that's why the 2 is a minor chord. So now you know why these chords are major and minor is what I was trying to get at here. Why are these chords major and minor? Because when you don't know that, it becomes harder to memorize. Now that you know, oh, okay, so this minor is always choosing the flat third. This is choosing the flat third. This is choosing the major third. This is choosing the major third. This is choosing the minor third or the flat third. And it's evidenced right here. And notice that we talked about how chords always go to the fifth. Well, when you go from 2 to 5 here, if you choose the flat third, you've got 2, and then you've got 3 notes. And then this is the exact opposite. When you go to the root in the third, you've got 3 notes here, and then you've only got a space of 2 notes in between. So it's like the flip-flop. You've basically got a minor third interval and a major third interval, making a minor chord. And then this one, you've got a major third interval, but then you also get a minor third interval, which creates a major chord because it's got the major third. But they're actually geometric inversions of each other, hence the geometry of the fretboard. So there you go. Copy this down and just rewind this part of the lesson until it makes sense to you. Let's go on to the next thing I wrote here. Now we've got this. I've chosen one scale shape to use as an example today. You can do what I've done here out of any scale shape you choose. There are 3 scale shapes in the major scale, which is written out here from octave to octave, that are based on a pentatonic framework. Just gonna try to eliminate some noise here. Okay. So we've got 3 shapes. One of them, we can give them names. One's called the Dorian shape. Then there's the Phrygian shape, which actually occurs right in between. It's actually kind of connected to the Dorian shape. I don't have it highlighted, so you might not be able to visualize it, but it would be there. I've even forgot one of my dots there. Let's make a dot there. All right, so I'm gonna try to get a cap on a pen here. Perfect. Okay, so and then the Aeolian shape is here. It's a name you can give it for whatever reason. Don't let that confuse you right now. I just want to show you that the shape I grabbed today was this one out of the whole major scale, which starts at here, do. There's your 1, your 2, your 3, your 4, your 5, your 6, your 7, and back to 1. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Sorry I can't get musical with you today, and I didn't decide to sing it, and show you that I can't really sing. So, the Dorian shape here is what we chose. So you can see that it's based on this pentatonic, and it's this shape right here. Check it out. The Dorian shape, so we showed you here that this is the 1, the do, from our do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti basics of music. So this is the 2. And then all you really need to do is, to make this so simple, is to memorize this. Right? Just assign these numbers to the top notes of that scale: 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Now, as long as you understand that the 2 is minor, the 3 is minor, the 4 is major, the 5 is major, and it's actually the dominant chord, which comes up later in music theory. You don't have to know that in the beginning. But the 5th is always, a very common chord in almost all music, so you'll get to know that pretty quick once you start studying this stuff. And consider some of this confusing stuff, like the fact that I said that that's dominant, an enticement to continue your studies here and get deeper and deeper in this rabbit hole of music theory. The 6 is minor, the 7 is diminished, and the 1 is major. So, once again, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, and major. So, if we had chosen another scale, we might have done 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, whatever. I don't know if what I just showed there was right, but not to worry right now. We chose this shape, and so I'm going to show you what you can do is write out all 7 of the arpeggio shapes that you can find. So basically, if you were just in this shape, you can outline every chord available in the key just using one shape. And let's say you were in the middle of your solo, and it was jamming on the 4 chord. You would know right here are your most inside notes of that pattern. The other squares that are in the pattern but empty are your outside, your play to those notes. You're going to use these notes to play to these notes. And these notes were like when you want to have a little more tension, and those notes are resolved. And then if you want some super tensions, those are any note that's outside the pattern completely. Like right inside there would be like a super tense note, which is, things you can do when you get really good at playing. When things get really boring in your solo, you might jump from one of those super tensions into a resolve, something like that. You never know. So that being said, here, if the chord was jamming on the 4 chord, these would be your home bass numbers, and then suddenly it switches to the 5 chord. So then now you've switched from, this is going to be, for example, an outside note of the 5 chord. So you'd be bringing maybe as the chord switched, you'd be accentuating these 2 notes, and then you would accentuate those 2 notes. Perhaps, it's just play around with it. Record a loop of the 4 chord and the 5 chord. Let's say you pick a D going into, well, let me make this more simple. Let's say this was the key of, let's say D. So what would the 4 be in D? That's, I think, that's a G and an A. So go from G major to A major, and put that as your G, and that is your A. No, does that make any sense? I don't know. I screwed up something here, but anyways, yeah, that would make sense if that was the. But that doesn't work out on the guitar very well. So let's see, you could make this like, okay, let's go easy here and just make this the key of C, which is a lot easier than never mind. Because I don't have my guitar in my hand, so it's harder to figure it out, and I didn't prep this talk before I started giving this lesson. But for example, anytime you were in the 4 chord of the key, so if the 3rd chord showed up, which isn't too likely, not too many times you jam over the 3, unless you're playing some heavy metal, or there's certain songs that might use the 3rd for a second or 2, but a lot of times you're going to have a 2 chord, and there's your 2 minor, boom, 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 and that's pretty much, notice that it's pretty much the minor bar chord. I'll highlight some of these and show you here, like for example, minor bar chord. And then you have the accessory notes here, and I'll basically do all the chord shapes, and then you'll see that there's some extra notes, and there was a little accident I made there, so disregard that. But so like for example, here's the G shape, in the cage system. There's the E shape in the cage system, but it's E minor. There's the like a C shape. It's almost like a G shape kind of too, since it starts on the 6-string root. Now here we switch to the 5th string. We can still, and we need a major chord. It's the 5, right? Because you can see here, this is 2, 3, 4. The 5 chord shows up. You would play. Here's basically your chord shape of a dominant chord based on the A string. You probably maybe even already know that chord, and then you may want to know some of the other notes as well. So let me get some another color here to accentuate those. So like you got that note and you got that note available. And then every other note is going to be your outside note. So you could even, let's accentuate those a little bit while we talk about that particular box. So you would have this as your like go-to notes. All the dots are your go-to notes. In between the yellows are going to be where you like finish your line, finish your statement, or start your statement, go away, and then come back. So it's like kind of like, consider this like, you can consider chords like islands in a sea, and the sea is is made up of the scale pattern, and with the you're hopping from the sea, you're starting on your island, diving into the sea, and coming back to your island, and that kind of makes a cool line, and accentuates, gives people the idea that you're accentuating that particular chord in two ways. If you're just soloing without any other accompanying instruments, you just got your guitar in your hand, or any instrument really for that matter, you would, if you accentuate these notes, you're kind of implying that chord. And if that chord is actually playing in the band, then you're soloing with chord tones, and you might bend from some of these notes up. These are like any note that's before a highlighted, that's a bendy note. Bend that up a whole step and you'll get there. Bend the 4th into the 5th is a very common, I think that's pretty common to David Gilmour, to when you hear that classic signature Gilmour bend, a lot of times that's the 4th into the 5th of the chord that's of the moment. Let's move on here into this guy right here. Let's say, where are we? So we did the 5th. This is the 6th. What's the 6th? 6 is minor, right? Let's see. Is 6 minor? Yep, there's 6 minor. So let's see. Yep, look, sure enough, we've got a minor 3rd, the 5th, the root. So minor 3rd there, and 5th. Here's your diminished down here. Just to wrap this up. We're not considering the using the 7th here. I think there's another note involved that I don't have listed, but we're not going to worry about that too much right now. It's like I said, diminish is going to happen. If you're getting into diminished chords, you're going to know a lot more theory than what I'm showing you here. So you're going to be getting into jazz at that point. So what do we got here? Now here's basically your D chord. That's why I mentioned using the key of D earlier, because this was jumping out in my head. Or if we were using the, well, never mind. So that would be a D major. You can know that from your D chord on your fretboard. That would be like the open string, and then there's you're playing a 5 root and a 3rd when you've got that open D chord fingered. And all these other notes are your go away from the chord tones and come back to the chord tone. Start on a chord tone, go away from a chord tone, come back to a chord tone, and especially if it's the root. And it sounds really it's that to turn lines and noodling into some music. So experiment by making some lines up that basically go like 2, 4, 6 root. That could be your song. Your song could go 4, 5 root. Going from a 5 to a 1 is very, very common in music. It's a very, very strong resolve. Going from a 4 to a 5 to a 1. Going from a 6 to a 4. A 3, 6, 5, 1. Or 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. All very common chord movements. So experiment with that, and let me know what you thought of this lesson in the comments, if it helped you out or made any sense to you. And I guess we'll go from there. I think I showed you everything that I sat there writing in the last few minutes down. So I'll leave you guys with that. 20 minutes here is a good length for video. If you want to show me that this meant anything to you, at the very least, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and of course leave me a comment below. Hit the notification button. Everyone always says that. And I'd like to have you guys have a great day. And thank you for watching.